Can one evening be worth $250 billion? What if you found out that the difference between $250 and $500 billion wasn't determined by decades of work, but by two decisions? One made in a bedroom 25 years ago, the other on a November evening in 2024 at a private residence in Florida. What do a divorce that cost $38 billion and a night spent with a future president have in common? Why does one billionaire today have twice as much as another, even though 5 years ago they were almost neck and neck? The story of two of the planet's richest people. A story about how personal life and political bets intertwine at the half-trillion level, and about why sometimes the absence of one signature can cost more than any business deal in the world. October 1st, 2025. The world saw something that just 5 years ago seemed like absolute fantasy. Elon Musk became the first person on the planet whose wealth crossed the $500 billion mark. A half-trillionaire. The number is so astronomical it's hard to wrap your head around. It's more than the annual budget of most countries in the world. It's an amount that could feed millions of people for decades. But the most amazing thing isn't the sum itself. The most amazing thing is the speed at which it appeared. In March 2020, just 5 years ago, Elon Musk had $24.6 billion in his accounts. Plenty, sure, but nowhere near the world's greatest fortune. He wasn't even in the top 3 richest. Imagine, in less than 5 years, his capital grew 20-fold. That means every single day for 5 years, Musk earned an average of about $260 million. Every single day. How is this possible? What's behind this phenomenal growth? And most importantly, what was that November 2024 event that launched the final sprint to $500 billion, the starting point when everything could have ended? To understand the scale of Musk's achievement, we need to go back to 2008. That year, his business empire was literally hanging by a thread. Tesla was burning through $4 million a month and was on the verge of bankruptcy. SpaceX had already failed its second rocket launch. Musk ran out of money. He was getting divorced. Everything around him was falling apart. Imagine the situation. You have two companies, both burning, both needing millions to survive, and you don't have a cent. Most people would have given up, put down their weapons, admitted defeat, but not Musk. He did something that seems insane. Took the last money he could find and divided it between two dying companies. It was like trying to save two sinking ships while standing waist-deep in water. In December 2008, he convinced Tesla investors to put in a bit more money at the last moment, literally days before collapse. And SpaceX unexpectedly won a NASA tender to supply cargo to the International Space Station, MAA, a contract worth $1.6 billion. That was the first rescue. But the real growth story was only beginning. Tesla. From bankruptcy to $1 trillion company. Over the next 12 years, Tesla transformed from a company nobody took seriously into the world's most expensive automaker. That in itself was an incredible achievement. Traditional auto giants laughed at the idea of electric cars. Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen, TO, they all had decades of experience, armies of engineers, giant factories. And Tesla was a startup they said was doomed, but Musk had a vision. He understood something others didn't. The future belongs not to those who make cars with internal combustion engines slightly better, but to those who completely rethink transportation. Tesla became not just a car company, it became a tech company that makes cars. By 2020, Tesla's stock was already starting to soar. The company proved it could produce electric vehicles at scale and profitably. The Model 3 became a bestseller, but the real explosion came later. In 2020, Tesla's market cap was about $100 billion. Skeptics said, "It's a bubble, it'll burst." But the bubble didn't burst. On the contrary, it kept expanding, because behind it was a real revolution. By the end of 2021, Tesla's market cap exceeded $1 trillion. 1 trillion. No car company in history had even come close to such numbers. Musk owned approximately 13% of the company. That meant his stake in Tesla alone was worth over $130 billion. But that was only part of the story. SpaceX, space monopoly. While Tesla was conquering roads, SpaceX was conquering space. And it was doing it so successfully that it essentially became a monopolist in commercial space launches. Think about this. In 2024, SpaceX conducted 134 launches. That's more than all other space agencies and companies in the world combined. They were launching satellites for governments, for private companies, for themselves. The Falcon 9 rocket became so reliable and cheap that competitors simply couldn't compete with it. And then there was Starlink. Thousands of satellites in orbit, providing internet connectivity across the entire planet. By November 2023, Starlink reached profitability. That meant SpaceX now had a stable cash flow, FAI, billions every year just from internet subscriptions. In 2025, SpaceX's expected revenue is $15.5 billion. For comparison, that's more than NASA's budget for space missions. By December 2024, SpaceX's private valuation reached $350 billion. And by October 2025, already $400 billion. Musk owned approximately 42% of the company. Quick math. His stake was worth $168 billion. But that's still not everything. XAI, the new star in the portfolio. In March 2025, Musk made another bold move. He merged his social network X, formerly Twitter, with his artificial intelligence startup XAI, creating XAI Holding. Many considered the purchase of Twitter for $44 billion in 2022, the worst business deal in history. The social network lost about 70% of its value. But Musk had a plan. By combining X and XAI, he created Synergy. A social network with millions of users became the perfect field for training artificial intelligence. The chatbot Grok, developed by XAI, got access to huge volumes of real-time data. And suddenly the deal that seemed like a failure started looking like a genius strategic move. By October 2025, XAI Holdings' valuation reached $113 billion. Musk controlled 53%. XAI, that's another $60 billion to his wealth. Just in September 2025, talks began about raising $10 billion for XAI at a $200 billion valuation. And literally yesterday, October 8th, information appeared that XAI is going to raise twice as much, $20 billion. Now let's add it all up. As of October 1st, 2025, Musk's portfolio looked like this. Tesla, about $191 billion, 12% stake. SpaceX, about $168 billion, 42% stake. XAI Holding, about $60 billion, 53% stake. Other assets, about $80 billion. Total, approximately $500 billion. This is incredible, but it's only half the story. Because the main question remains, why now? Why did Musk's wealth grow so sharply, specifically in 2024 to 2025? The secret ingredient, politics and Trump. And now about that November 2024 event that changed everything. On November 5th, 2024, presidential elections were held in the United States. Donald Trump won. And Elon Musk was right there with him. Throughout the election campaign, Musk spent over $290 million supporting Trump. He traveled the country with him, spoke at rallies, organized lotteries with $1 million prize pool. Musk became one of the biggest political donors in US history. And this was an all-in bet. Why? Because the previous president, Joe Biden's administration, didn't like Musk. Tesla wasn't invited to meetings with major automakers. Musk criticized unions, and Democrats supported them. He saw in Trump a chance to get direct access to power and lucrative contracts for his companies, especially for SpaceX. And the bet paid off. brilliantly paid off. Immediately after Trump's victory, what can be called a financial tsunami happened. In one day, November 6th, Musk's wealth grew by $26.5 billion. In one day, Tesla stock soared 14%. Investors suddenly saw a future where Tesla gets huge support from the federal government. Subsidies for electric vehicles, tax breaks, permits for autonomous driving. Over the following weeks, Tesla stock continued to rise. In the 6 weeks after the election, it almost doubled, adding about $350 billion to the company's market cap. On December 17, 2024, Musk's wealth reached its peak value, minus $486.4 billion. This was an absolute historical record. No one, ever, had that much money. But it wasn't just about money. Trump appointed Musk head of the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. This gave him unprecedented access to the inner workings of American power. Musk began influencing official appointments, participated in Trump's phone calls with foreign leaders, advised on government policy. His companies got what they needed. SpaceX strengthened its contracts with the Department of Defense and NASA. Tesla got support for developing autonomous driving. xAI started attracting billions in investments. And all this time, Musk's wealth kept growing. Bezos, the tragedy of the most expensive divorce. But to fully appreciate Musk's achievement, it's worth looking at his main competitor, Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon. Here's a man who could also have been a half-trillionaire, maybe even a trillionaire. But fate decided otherwise. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, it's an eternal rivalry. Both have space companies, Blue Origin versus SpaceX. Both are visionaries of the technological revolution. Both fought for the title of the world's richest person. About 5 years ago, it seemed Bezos would win. Amazon dominated e-commerce. His wealth was growing faster than anyone's. And then, January 9th, 2019 happened. That day, Jeff Bezos and his wife Mackenzie Scott, with whom he'd lived for 25 years and raised 4 children, announced their divorce. The reason? Bezos' scandalous affair with TV host and pilot Lauren Sanchez. The story was loud and spicy. The tabloid National Enquirer published intimate messages from Bezos to Lauren, where the billionaire wrote things like, "I want to smell you. I want to breathe you in." The media savored the scandal. Bezos even hired a private detective to find out how the tabloid got his personal correspondence and accused the publication of blackmail. But the biggest hit wasn't to his reputation, it was to his wallet. Bezos and Mackenzie didn't have a prenuptial agreement. In Washington state, where they lived, that meant property acquired during the marriage had to be divided in half. And the marriage lasted 25 years, exactly the period when Bezos was creating and developing Amazon. In April 2019, the divorce terms became known. Mackenzie received 4% of Amazon stock, worth about $38 billion. This instantly made her the third richest woman in the world. Bezos graciously got back voting rights from these shares and kept all shares of the Washington Post and Blue Origin. $38 billion. This is the most expensive divorce in human history. For comparison, if Bezos had kept that money and if it had continued growing along with Amazon, today, those shares would be worth significantly more. Perhaps it was that sum that didn't allow him to catch up with Musk in the race to $500 billion. But the story has a continuation. Lauren Sanchez, the new Mrs. Bezos. In June 2025, 6 years after the scandalous divorce, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez finally got married. The wedding took place in Venice on the island of San Giorgio, one of the most luxurious weddings of the decade. Cost from $7 to $30 million, depending on who you believe. About 200 guests: Oprah Winfrey, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kim Kardashian, Bill Gates. 55-year-old Lauren, a former TV host and licensed pilot, founder of an aerial filming company, is now officially Mrs. Bezos. Her own wealth is estimated at approximately $30 million. But there's one big difference compared to Bezos' first marriage. This time, he signed a prenuptial agreement. Learning from the most expensive divorce in history, Bezos took care to protect his wealth. Lawyers claim the agreement is beneficial primarily to him. It protects wealth accumulated before marriage. As of July 2025, that's about $233 billion. An interesting detail. Bezos is so captivated by his new wife that, according to rumors, he wants to make her a Bond girl in the next 007 film. His company Amazon owns MGM Studio, which has the rights to the franchise. One Hollywood insider said, "She's not an actress, but she's Jeff's muse. And when you spend $8 billion on a studio, you get what you want." The couple often appears at social events, Paris Fashion Week, Formula One, Hollywood parties. They look happy, but in the financial world, everyone understands. The 2019 divorce forever changed the wealth equation between Bezos and Musk. The race to $1 trillion. Who will be first? As of October 2025, the gap between Musk and Bezos is enormous. Musk, $500 billion. Bezos, about $230 to $250 billion, depending on market fluctuations. The difference is more than double. It's stunning when you remember that just a few years ago they were almost even. In 2021, both had a bit over $200 billion, but since then, their trajectories have diverged. Why did Musk break away so dramatically? First, Tesla. The company became not just the most expensive automaker, it became a symbol of the future. Its market cap at the end of 2024 exceeded $1 trillion. For comparison, all traditional auto giants combined, Toyota, Volkswagen, Ford, GM, were worth less. Second, SpaceX. The company completely monopolized commercial space launches. In 2024, it conducted 134 launches, more than the entire rest of the world combined. The company's value grew to $400 billion. Starlink brings in billions every year. NASA and the US Department of Defense are completely dependent on SpaceX. This isn't just business, it's a strategic national security asset. Third, xAI. A new player in the artificial intelligence market that in a few months grew to a valuation of over $100 billion. The merger with social network X provided access to massive data. Now the company is negotiating to raise $20 billion in new funding. And finally, most importantly, political influence. Musk became not just a businessman. He became a key figure in the Trump administration. His companies get support at the highest level. This gives a huge competitive advantage. Experts predict, if everything continues according to the current scenario, Musk could become the world's first trillionaire by March 2033. That's when one of his compensation packages at Tesla, worth up to $1 trillion, takes effect. But there are also skeptics. In 2025, Musk's wealth experienced fluctuations. There were periods when he lost tens of billions in a few days due to Tesla stock drops. His political activity caused negative reactions from some Tesla customers. Some refused to buy cars because of the CEO's political views. In the first quarter of 2025, Tesla's profit fell by 71%. But even taking these problems into account, Musk remains the undisputed leader. The gap between him and Bezos is so large that catching up is almost impossible. So, what do we see when we look at the Elon Musk phenomenon? This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about risk, vision, and the ability to make bets when everyone else hesitates. In 2008, when everything could have ended in bankruptcy, Musk didn't give up. He invested his last money in dying companies. It was insane, but it worked. In 2020 to 2024, when Tesla and SpaceX were already successful, he didn't stop. He created a new artificial intelligence company, bought Twitter for $44 billion, even though everyone said it was a failure, merged it with xAI. Again, put everything on this bet. In 2024, he bet on Trump. Spent almost $300 million of his own money. Publicly supported a candidate half the country hated. Risked reputation and business. Each of these bets could have failed. Each could have cost him everything. but each one hit. And now let's remember Jeff Bezos, a brilliant entrepreneur who created Amazon, one of the biggest companies in history. But one mistake, to have a prenuptial agreement, cost him $38 billion. Perhaps that very sum became the difference between second place and $500 billion. The lesson? In the game at the highest level, every decision matters. Every bet can either catapult you into the stratosphere or become an obstacle you'll never overcome. Musk made dozens of bets. Most worked out. He became the first $500 billion not because he was the smartest, though he's a brilliant engineer. Not because he worked the most, though he works 100 hours a week. He became a $500 billion because he had the courage to risk everything when he saw an opportunity. And that November 2024 event, FAD, Trump's victory, turned out to be the last key puzzle piece. It was the moment when all his companies, all his bets, all his influence combined into one perfect storm of growth. On October 1, 2025, when Tesla stock rose another 4% and added $9.3 billion to him in one day, Elon Musk crossed a line no one before him had crossed. $500 billion, a $500 billion, and somewhere in Venice or on a yacht in the Mediterranean, Jeff Bezos probably sipped a glass of wine with his beautiful wife Lauren and wondered, what if he had signed that prenuptial agreement in 1993? Where would he be now? But history doesn't know the subjunctive mood. It only knows facts. And the fact is this: Elon Musk is the first person in history to reach $500 billion. And it happened because at the critical moment in November 2024, when America's future was being decided, he made the biggest bet of his life. And won. Now, in the fall of 2025, Musk continues moving forward. His XAI is raising $20 billion. SpaceX is planning 170 launches per year. Tesla is developing new models. Grokipedia is preparing to compete with Wikipedia. And Bezos? He's still the second richest person in the world with approximately $250 billion. Amazon continues to dominate e-commerce. Blue Origin is gradually developing, and he's happy with his new wife, who might soon become a Hollywood star. Both billionaires have reached incredible heights. But history will remember one as the first $500 billion, and the other as the man whose most expensive divorce possibly cost him that title. Such is the price of risk. Such is the price of mistakes. And such is the reward for having the courage to bet everything at the right moment.